Hello, I'm Glenn W. Hunter, and with me today is our subject matter expert, Shor Denny, and this is the 3 C's of social emotional learning: community, communication, and collaboration. And today, what we're going to talk about is education and exercise. What we have is a challenge with exercise being introduced into education as we're trying to navigate through this pandemic, and particularly here in the Inland Empire where the weather's been nice. How do you balance those two? Sure, this is such a simple thing on the outside, but a complicated thing once you get into the details. Education and exercise. I mean, what does that trigger with you?
It triggers that they need to be together. Education and exercise come together. I was trying to find a site, someone that I could name, but I went through a training and I didn't get the name. I don't remember it. A gentleman that spoke about both hemispheres of the brain and how important it is to cross hemispheres, especially when you are trying to learn, when you're going into your cognitive thinking and learning. So his theory was that you need to cross, planes, cross hemispheres with your body, arms and legs, and that makes the connections happen faster, which helps you learn faster. So I'm going to say that even using that if you are just sitting in front of the computer all day and there's no motion happening and there's no movement, that you're not really gaining as much. You're not learning at the capacity that I think you can if you are active.
And I think there's science that actually backs that up pretty substantially. And it's funny how the pandemic, once again, strikes at that knowledge and has more or less created a problem for our youth. So I guess the first question I have is, is it verifiable? Is it true that the lack of exercise, how does it impact learning capacity?
I mean, we could go through studies, or we could just say, let's just talk about just the human nature. If I am active, then I'm actually wanting to learn. I'm actually inquisitive. There, my brain is flowing, the oxygen is flowing, blood is flowing, and I am up, and I am, I'm active in the world. When I'm lethargic, when I'm laying back, and if I'm, like I've read a book, or, I'm in a very sedated state, my brain is not, the energy and the flow, the blood flow is not moving fast. I'm not creating, right? I'm not creating. So I think that would be it. Being very immobile makes you lazy. It makes me lazy. The longer I lay around, well, at some point I go crazy, but I mean, while I'm in that mode, as long as I'm in that kind of a lackadaisical mode, I'm not very productive. Even when I'm working, if I come to work and I sit at my computer and I start late, right? I'm being lackadaisical about it. I don't get as much done that day. I don't find any new projects, or I'm not looking for anything to accomplish or conquer. And I'm only dealing with what I have to do to get off of my desk. So I think that kind of goes with learning too. The youth are sitting down and they're only doing what they have to do because there's no motivation, there's no energy, there's no reason to get up and to get motivated.
I think that lack of exercise really does attack the physiology and the psychology of our youth. The blood's not flowing, the neurons aren't firing. I mean, those are things that work in conjunction. And I think it's easy to overlook that I'm just sitting here and not necessarily intentionally being lazy, but just not being engaged. So consequently, you're not as receptive to your environment. And in the case of education, you're not going to be as receptive to new information.
my niece, I have a niece, and she's in ballet class. So she stayed here for weeks because, that's a beautiful thing, that she's able to go anywhere there's internet, and she can still be in school.
Mhm.
So she was here for weeks. And her ballet class was mainly her sitting here. She had her leotard on, her tights, her ballet shoes, and
Mhm.
she just sat at the computer, right? I mean, they got up every now and then and she did a few kicks and then she sat back at the computer. The class was not, um, there was no endurance building. There was no enthusiasm. Even coming through, the teacher had a challenge, you know, in engaging and getting them energized to get up and to
Right.
do. You know, you heard the music 1 and 2, and you know, you heard that, but no energy. So, I mean, just think of all the dance classes, the youth that aren't even getting that exercise that they would get mandatorily by just going to school, right? You know, oh, I'm in dance class. You got to move. You got to move. But now they're just sitting looking at the teacher
Right.
as
Right.
she talks about dance.
Right. You know, and to your point, they're not receiving information in a way that they've become accustomed to receiving it, and they're not really getting the benefit that they would get intuitively, because that is part of the routine of learning. I'm up, I'm dancing, you know, or, you know, even in situations where students are up and just walking from one place to another, maybe it's in between classes or to the playground just to hang out, but there is activity in just hanging out. All of that has now been forfeited,
Well,
you know, but I don't think
I'm
it's
not
just.
going to say it has not. It has not. What has happened is that in the home environment, we have not been equipped with how to do it, right? They haven't been, because the youth, they can have a PE period and the youth can go in the backyard. You know, the youth can go on the front steps and throw a ball. I mean, there are things they can lay on the floor and do exercises. There are things that can be done. It's not that it's been taken, it's that we now have to reinvent what that looks like.
Well, one of the things that I've learned is happening as I've talked to physical education teachers who are teaching, you know, here in the IE in this environment, is that the children aren't meeting the minimum that's being required. For example, an assignment may be go out, walk for 3, 4 minutes and record it, and then submit that to your portal so I could see you actually did something that is physically engaging, and students are not doing that. That doesn't mean they're not held accountable to it. It impacts their grade in a sense. But now all of a sudden, we have not, in my example, engaged them to the point where either it's a priority or I'm going to do it so they don't bother me. You know, I'll walk, just don't talk to me when I get back to class. But you've accomplished
It's
the
so
goal.
it's so sad, you know, because normally when they walked and they hated walking, I hated walking and running in school. I hated it. But you got with someone and you walked with them and you talked. So you
Right.
got it done. You didn't want to do it, but at least you had something to engage you. I guess now, you know, that engagement and that camaraderie and that even fun competition, right?
Mhm.
That you would have between your friends of who's going to come across the line first. Those things are gone. Yeah.
I know one of the things I noticed pre-pandemic at a middle school that is near me is that it was a, maybe not a total, but it was clearly a social window of time. They go out and they're there on the track and they're walking and they're being young, and the young athletes might actually run a little bit, and you know, the future prom queen is sort of primping a little bit. But again, there's physical engagement,
Yes.
which is the goal. And some
Yes.
of that's been forfeited. So,
That's gone.
so,
That is gone.
but even as we look at what we do have, there is the potential for accountability. You know, so as I'm looking again at the balance between education and exercise as we're looking at it today, you know, how does this dynamic impact the parents? Because we have parents that are engaged with the learning process. So how does this dynamic impact the parents who are now more engaged in their kids' learning and development?
It's gonna be a lot different, and some parents are going to be impacted more because maybe they weren't involved before and now they are. right? Some
Mhm.
parents might now have to actually get involved that weren't. But there are parents that have always been involved and have been active with their youth and who actually have slowed down because their youth have slowed down. You
Mm.
know, and then there's the parent that's more active than the youth.
Mhm.
So, but I think that the youth being at home, to me, a lot of their, if it seems that if your parents and the people around you are active, that you are active,
Right.
and as a youth, you are active if your home has an active lifestyle. So some youth are going to be more inclined to go do something active because that's how they're run. That's how their house
Mhm.
is. It's probably not most of the people. Most of the people are probably very prone to being in front of a computer or a screen and, playing, being gamers or, that kind of thing, and spending a lot of their time in a sitting position.
Mhm.
Um, so it's going to drive the parents crazy because the kids that are used to having to go out and do that run and expend that bit of energy,
Right.
ADD is going to increase, ADHD, depression is going to increase, anxiety is going to increase because our youth are just sitting. There's going to be they're going to be more focused on things that they wouldn't have been focused on, or
Mhm.
that maybe they would focus on, but not as much. Right now, they're hyper into social media. So anything, now they're again, the depression and all of that. Oh, am I popular? Am I not?
Right.
That kind of thing. When I was in doing some trainings with youth, I asked them, are you lonely? Has that social connection been broken? And I was told no by this particular group. They stated that they are completely in contact. They
Mhm.
are connected through social media and their phones. So they still have this subculture that they are dealing with. And hopefully that will bring back, as they start to recreate social interaction, that will bring back some of that competitiveness of, hey, look at me out running.
Mhm.
It's changing the model, changing the modem, but maybe again, by being innovative in what can we do instead of looking at what we can't. How do we empower them? Our teachers are being trained right now too on how
Yes.
to empower the youth long distance through a screen, right? This is new for every teacher. So I think right now, all we're talking about is an adjustment period. And unfortunately, I don't think it'll ever go all the way back. So
Mhm.
I think this adjustment, I think our youth also were waiting, like, okay, why create new things when we're going to go back? But I think they're even seeing that going back is going to be different than it was before. So they're creating new ways.
Wow, I really appreciate the way you talked about their ability to be flexible or inflexible in this development. I mean, there is a sense of power that our youth do have in this part of their development. And then it's just up to them to assume the responsibility of continuing to flourish in it. And it seems that some of them, to your comments, are not embracing that responsibility. And so, and I think that gets us sort of to the next question is, what are some of the consequences of allowing this exercise deficiency to continue? If they don't get it right, what happens?
Well, as humans, I think we are going to figure this out. And I think
Mhm.
as youth, they are going to get the energy, the exercise. The ones that are going to be active are going to get the exercise. Um, Prompting those others, by pushing those others to get out there. I think our parents have a lot to deal with, and that it does fall on them, that if they aren't real active, to try to at least make their youth active, right?
Mhm.
There are some parents that parent from the bedroom, you know and as they're parenting from the bedroom, the hope is that they are making sure at least the kids are outside running, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I'm not going to put any parenting style down, right? We're all, raised by a parenting style that's good, bad, or, in the middle. But it's using that parenting style and trying to get the benefit to the youth. Again,
Mhm.
thinking differently? What opportunities do we have? Because now actually you might be able to get the youth to be more active than you did before. Maybe they weren't being active in school because they didn't want to change in front of other people. They weren't, they were shy about their performance, right? They didn't perform as well as others, and they didn't want to be joked, teased. So this is also a time where you can try to build skills in those individuals so that they become more confident as school comes in, by building their skill sets singularly with that parent. So parents might become coaches, physical coaches right now. My daughter and I, we do exercise all through the house. I try to exercise at least 3 days a week, more usually, but with that, we go roller skating together, right? Outside roller skating, so that's a great form of exercise. Or we do a challenge right now. We're in a thigh challenge, right? So, oh Lord, but we're doing these thigh exercises that are killing me, but it keeps us engaged. We have a relationship where we share intimately, and we're able to build good things with each other, health, right? Health and wealth together. So might be changing how we're doing things and incorporating our youth.
Man, I think it's important that in your example that you found that commonality for that physical exertion, because it's easy to sit there on the sidelines and direct, but by being engaged, it's much. I think the student is much more likely to embrace the lesson that you're providing. Just
Well,
like
and how many pounds have you gained since COVID? I mean, I have gained a lot of weight. And how do we fight that? That by being physically active. So for us parents, how do we stop from having depression and anxiety? And how do we help build ourselves so that we can support our youth? And that's through physical activity for us, so that we can burn off that stress. I'm a gamer, and we have the VR, PS4 VR. So I play Beat Saber, which is this game with these things, and it's music, right? And it's physically active. So I will play this game, and I can be frustrated at work. I get on that game in the evening, and I do that, and it burns off my extra energy so that I can think. A lot of us get frustrated. We're pent up with energy. We want to get out. We want to do things. So being physically active burns that off, and it helps us to cope.
I think that's an excellent example, again, using the technology from a point of strength. I think, again, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the fact, not only is that exercise deficiency, going to create angst as they're trying to learn, there are long-term deficiencies that'll result from it. You're actually reinforcing poor habits if that walk around the playground, for example, is not returned in some form or fashion. So I think it's important, particularly from our school officials, our teachers, that they are reinforcing that component of actually engaging in their physical activity, not just something that you're going to do just to keep you busy, but something that's actually part of their overall educational development. It enhances their ability to learn, especially if you're a kinesthetic learner. Give me something to grab, chase, touch. Now all of a sudden things make sense to me.
Exactly. Their physical activity is very important. In 6 months, right, our youth can start becoming very unhealthy with bad eating habits, or even not even bad eating habits, just eating and not doing anything, right? It creates excess fat, excess weight. That turns into what? And even in parents, it turns into heart problems, diabetes. These are alongside with that depression and anxiety, you get that health issue as well. That's called a comorbid situation where you have 2 things or 3 things happening at once with your body. So it's very, very, very important that we as individuals include exercise in our daily lives, period. Not worrying about or concerned or restricting ourselves to school activity. We should institute and teach our youth to be active daily in their lives to create a healthy body and mind.
And to kind of wrap all of this up, that healthy mindset, that healthy body, mind, all of those things do not require you to necessarily get outside and mask up and go at it like that. There, walking upstairs, things of that nature. Um, all of those things give you a benefit. Leg lifts while you're watching television. I mean,
Especially the stomach. Oh, I do those almost every night. That was one of my things. Yeah. Do the stomach, the legs, the thighs while you're watching TV. It's a great way to be able to blank out the pain, right? Because you're focusing on what you're watching, so you actually get more done. So it's a great time to exercise.
wow. I tell you, with all the other things going on, with the pandemic here at the Inland Empire, with the crazy weather as things cool down and actually start looking like autumn, I think it's important that we don't overlook the physical development that's still required of our students as they continue to not just get through, but learn through these difficult times. They can, in fact, improve and keep their development going, which will continue to pay off in great ways, not just for them, but also their school community and the greater community. So I think we've tackled this issue. Sure. Tell the folks how to get a hold of us.
You can reach us at communitynow.info online, or you can call our offices at 951-413-6587. We look forward to hearing from you. Give us comments. Look on YouTube when you're on there. Like us, subscribe, and share us with others.
And by all means, give us the topics that you are individually interested in. We're fortunate enough to have the relationships, the resources. So we're not just digging up questions, we're actually asking the people who are on the front line what's working, what's not, and we're eager to share that information with all of you. Once again, my subject matter expert, Shor Denny. And I'm Glenn W. Hunter, 3Cs of SEL. And as we always close, we encourage you in this crazy, crazy time, be safe.
Stay well.